Good morning, everybody on YouTube. This is Rick Thomas from Obsolete Video Services. Hey, guys. All right, I've been working on a repair for a customer, and he brought over a Sony compact Betacam SP, digital Betacam SP and Betacam SX. It's like a multi-unit player. You can get these off eBay. They are still kind of expensive when you find them if they're in good shape. Problem is, these were like the throwaway models of the Betacam SP. They were made very cheaply. A lot of crap. Things were made out of a lot of crap. Cheap ass boards and things like that. Well, anyways, I rarely make a video where I show in detail some of the repair work that goes into what I do, because it's such a hassle to set up this freaking camera and a tripod and all this crap. I wish I had a videographer who could just stand here and do this for me while I do repairs. It'd be a little easier to teach you guys, but unfortunately I don't. But anyways, we're going to walk through a Betacam SP. These are called modular units. It's called the J-1 series, Betacam SP J-1. They had a J3, they had a J30, SDI, several models of these. And relatively, they're all mechanically exactly the same. And I'm going to show you some tricks on fixing these units. If you happen to have machines for parts and various things, there is a way of fixing these, okay? There is no parts available for these guys, so bear with me on some of this stuff. So we're about to do a little walkthrough of what it takes to fix one of these. Okay, this thing was screwed up, okay? To start off with, I had to replace the loading carriage. This loading carriage is jammed, okay? It's angular, the gear's jammed on the inside. When it gets to this point on these type of things, you can fix them, but it takes a lot of work to fix these. But I happen to have another replacement, so I swapped it out with a working one. You always got to keep a lookout for these little loading motors on these things. You see how it's got a little brass gear? Some of the earlier ones had a plastic gear, and the gear would slip, and these things would have a real hard time loading. So if you happen to have a lot of parts, always look for the best loading carriages, and ones with the little motors that had the little brass gear on them. These are the better loading carriages to use for replacements on these units. But there was a plastic one. It tended to crack, and it would slip, and these things would have a hell of a time loading right. They would load wrong, and then they would jam, and then they would just destroy themselves, basically. So you want to look for the loading carriage. If you're going to replace them, always look for high quality parts. The motors that came with these with the brass fittings are the high ends. These are the ones you need to look for. So anyways, we had to replace the loading carriage on this thing, which was really messed up. And the reason it was messed up is because of the faceplate. These, I don't know if you happen to own one of these. Sometimes the tape would get caught in the door. People would force these things, and it would get jammed in the door area, and then that would cause the loading carriage to activate at the wrong time and jam and everything else. These faceplates were complete crap. Every time I ever get one of these for repair, the faceplate's either cracked, broken snap-ons at the top, or broken at the bottom. In this particular case, it's completely broken. They use tape to tape it together. It's cracked on the side over here. It's all cracked. And so anyways, this whole faceplate is completely destroyed. Even if I fixed everything else, they would end up jamming it and screwing it up all over again. So you ask yourself, what do you do if you don't? If you have to replace the front panel if you don't have any? Well, I get a lot of these machines from time to time, and I have an awful lot of parts on these type of models, every so often, because people send me these. Some of them I scrap out, some of them I keep the parts for. So let me show you a little trick. If you have to replace a front panel on any of these J series, a few of them are compatible. Like the J1 series is compatible with the HD Cam JH3. It's an identical faceplate, and I mean identical, absolutely identical. Okay. All you have to do is change the circuit board of the two and put the one that was for the J series circuit board for the display in place of this one that's the JH3, which is a different display. But it's an exact match for a faceplate. I mean, the faceplate is identical. It's just the electronic board behind it. And you just have to swap them out to make sure you have the right board, and then you can replace the panel and you're ready to go. In this situation, once this thing is working, you just have to ignore its HD cam because it's not. It's just, we're just replacing it with a brand new panel that's not destroyed. All right, that's phase 2 on fixing a damaged unit like this. You have to replace the face panel, which is this, and the loading carriage, which was screwed up because of the face panel, which is always a disaster on these freaking units. All right, now we're going to get to the point of the other damage on this machine. All right, as you can see, I've got the boards out. All right, this is your mechanism board that runs your spindles for loading and unloading, and it's like your playback board actually. And it detects if there's a tape in there and there's not a tape in there. That's what this board does. It's a part of the playback board itself. It actually detects if there's tapes in there and the function and that type of thing and what it's supposed to be doing. This particular board is like a systems board. It covers all kinds of things, audio, color, and various different things. This board does an awful lot. The audio, you can see sometimes it's written on the board what it does, but it also controls the digital function as well for the digital Betacam SP. It's a major board, and this is the one that goes on the bottom. So there's 2 different boards you have to take out. The first board you have to take out, it covers the gears, is this one, and then you got the second board, which covers the top board. All right, this thing was really, really, really screwed up. All right, not only did they wreck the panel and the control panel, when this thing got stuck and jammed, they actually broke one of these gears, okay? Now, this is a fun part, guys, is resetting these gears and fixing them to work correctly. It's a really funky setup. A lot of times the pin that controls the engagement on this last gear that goes on the very end will get bent or just completely loose and come loose where it's screwed onto this gear, this little control aperture on this thing. If that gets loose, your loading feed will be too loose, and the deck will just go bananas. Usually it's because of this gear. Well, this one's broke, and also this one had a chip in it. So I went in and put all brand new gears, okay? And of course, I've worked on so many of these, I know how to do this. You have to reset all these gears back where they belong. And I've done a couple hundred of these machines at least. So let me show you something. So you turn it around, and if you watch, you can spin this motor here. And what this does is, once you know if you got it right, you would spin this, and after you got your gears all set in place. If you don't have a service manual, do not attempt to do this. If you've never done this in your life and you're just going to, by the seat of your ass, do not do this. Unless you're properly trained in electronic repairs of video equipment and done this for years, you need somebody who could guide you to do this right. This is very complicated. You get this wrong, you're screwed. It's got to be absolute correct. As you can see, it's now feeding properly and it's going forward, or in this case, it's going in the forward position. As you can see, I got the gears in the proper position, and it's going all the way in the load position. Right now, it's locked, and boom. Okay, now that is, you see the motor will stop. Right now it stops. This should be nice and tight up against this one arm, because this arm is located right here. And that's the problem arm right there. That's what keeps your tension. If that's not really tight in the load position, you did it wrong. All right, so that's got to be done correctly. You got to make sure that all the parts that open up and close in loading lock. If they don't lock, you did something wrong. You got the gears in the wrong position, or it's just not quite. It's not quite locked in where it should be, or you put the gears off or whatever. And these little arms on here, okay, if these arms are bent, you gotta make sure they're not bent from being forced with tapes being stuck. Okay, in this case, I had to take the whole mechanism out. I had to change these arms out too because they were broke. This thing was really beat on, whoever owned this thing. All right, I recommend you get like a brush with a light oil type of stuff, and you make sure you oil the bottom of the aperture when you're done. Okay. But as you can see, It's not easy working on these things. So now if you go back up, it should drag all the way back in the loading position, which it should be doing. All right. This is not an easy deck to work on. I've been doing it for years, so I kind of know what to look for, but it's not easy. If this deck gets screwed up, it's a repair. All right, as you see, it stops, which it should be stopping right about there, and it does. So that's in a complete loading position. So the front where all of them go together before you put the tape in. So now that's, you take your finger on that, that's nice and snug. That's nice and snug. Nice and snug and snug. Good, 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 good. And then if you go back here, okay, and you just keep checking it for a few times just to make sure you got the loading mechanism gears in place correctly. If you don't, you're going to start hearing gears snapping and gears slipping and everything else, and it's not going to load, and it's going to jam like a mother. So you got to make sure you fix this correctly. But this takes a little bit of time. Back in during the days when I used to use service manuals, you pick up a few things after a while. After doing this for 35 years, it's sort of like riding a bike. You don't really ever forget how to do it. But as you can see, now this thing loads nice. It should stop right about there. Okay, which it does. Okay, so as you can see, this gear's pin is pushing up against that, and that is in a full-blown open mode. See how tight that is? That's your tension wheel. That's what keeps the tension from this spindle to keep it around the drum. Well, that's fixed now. That thing was so loose, it couldn't hold tension, and the deck would stop. So now we got that fixed, got the gears fixed, got the loading carriage fixed, got the front panel fixed. And like I said, we substituted the front panel with the HD cam panel, which is an identical panel. It's just you have to ignore the writing on it. And that's about it, guys. Once you get it to this point, if you don't have a board problem, which this thing really didn't have, it just was a complete mechanism problem, which was completely destroyed from forcing tapes, breaking the panel, then breaking the loading carriage itself, and then the tension of the tape, them trying to force it out. They broke the pins and gears below on this part of it. It turned this thing into a piece of shit. If it wasn't for how expensive these decks are, I probably wouldn't even have bothered fixing it as far as I did, but the customer wanted it fixed. But anyways, this is a Sony Betacam SP J-1 deck, which is modified with a Sony HD Cam JH3 front bezel, which is an exact match to the one that was broke, since I had one off of a gutted machine. I'm glad I kept the front panels, which then I was able to actually fix this one. So now he's getting a better bezel, loading carriage, and we're about to wrap this deck up, and we're gonna put the boards back in. But that's how you fix a J1 Betacam SP after it's completely destroyed. Hope you enjoyed this video.